Hello and welcome back to Advent of Tess Day 21. It's been 21 days, 3 whole weeks of folding tessellations. And today we're going to be folding something that I call open triangle linked flowers. It's got these open triangle stars and then the rhombi coming out right from the tip of the triangle, but it's hidden under the neighboring triangle, so it looks like it's just popping into place, just hanging out, floating on its own. So we've got the closed hexagon, the open triangle, and the closed rhombi all on the same side. And let's go ahead and jump in and get started. So grabbing my grid, I'm going to put in the closed hexagon. Going to make sure that all of my mountain folds are going to the corners. All of my valley folds are above the mountains, at least on the right-hand side. We're going to get everything in and down and on screen. And poke the center of the hexagon, grab it on 3 alternating sides, twist it around and down, and then iron out any lumpiness that made its way in during the twist. I'm going to use my bone folder on everything, just because. And so we're going to start out by folding our hexagon in half and bringing a pleat along with it. Then putting in an open triangle twist, densely spaced, so one closer than tube pleat spacing. And this is exactly the same as what we did yesterday so far. Then when I open up my hexagon, I actually want to go back the other direction so I can have the overlap in the way that will keep the rhombi on this side and be easier to open. So I'm going to fold my hexagon in half, and I'm just gonna kind of let my triangle kind of float there. I'm not putting a hard crease in because I don't want to add new creases to the paper. I'll set up my open triangle and squash it. And while I'm here, and I'm going to need this flap lifted anyways to squash the rhombus, I may as well open up the rhombus. So the through line of the rhombus is coming from my most recent twist. Get that set into place and squash before I open my hexagon. Then I'm going to stack under, as it were, the next triangle. Again, fold my hexagon in half, set up the new triangle, and aren't you glad this is recorded so you can see instructions more than once? So we're going to set up our new rhombus at the pleat overlap while my pleat here is raised, and squash that. Then lay the hexagon back down flat, rotate, rinse, repeat. So I'm going to get another open triangle in here. Get that pressed nice and flat before I set up the closed rhombus. And rotate, have the hexagon, set up the triangle, and then set up the rhombus. Now we could have chosen to leave everything flat and try and squash on top of existing things, but that gets pretty thick with layers, and so I'm going to strongly recommend pulling the hexagon back before we set up the next triangle. And we're around to the 6th triangle, so we've got 2 overlaps here, and I'm going to just go ahead and set up the rhombus, because why not, on this side before I squash. And here I can even lift up the other triangle to get a nice flat surface for squashing my new triangle, which is being a little fussy, but not bad. And then I can layer however I like, and let both of my rhombi come into position and squash them. And as we've seen pretty consistently here in Advent of Tess, my rhombi are coming exactly to the edge of the paper, so I've got to be a little extra careful when I'm getting that close. Then for my rhombus at this overlap, I'm going to lift the layer that I'm going to stick the corner of the rhombus under before I set up the rhombus, squash it into place, and then sit those layers back down. And so if you want to see the alternative layering with the open triangles, we can pop everything up, and you'll see that the open triangle is just barely covering the closed hexagon. It's not sticking over very much, and there's a lot of layers in there, which would make it really hard to squash the open triangle on top of that closed hexagon, which is one of the reasons why I like to keep it closed, to keep them underneath. So all kinds of layering options when we're working this densely. Tomorrow we're going to move away from the open triangle stars and do it with open rhombi instead. Because what's an open rhombus but 2 open triangles? So I will see you there, and happy folding!